Today, I'm going to walk you through the exact workout plan for men who want to melt belly fat fast. And just like diet, most men overcomplicate their workouts. They cobble together a plan from 100 different YouTube videos that they've watched, and they think it's much more about how much they sweat rather than anything measurable in terms of results. But that is not going to work for you for a few reasons. First and foremost, the guys who you are copying these workout programs from, let's look at them. They're younger than you. They have more time than you. Most of them are taking steroids, like 90% of them. And they're only showing you what looks good on camera. Okay? So the workouts that they're doing, they will work for them, but they won't necessarily work for you. So what you're doing is you're putting in a lot of effort, but you're getting very little return. Most of you guys watching are over 40, over 30. You've got busy lives, you've got jobs, you've got families, and you've got stress. You want to look good, you want to feel better, but you don't have the time that these guys do. And more importantly, your job, your priority is not to look like Arnold Bloody Schwarzenegger, okay? But the good news is this. It's not about doing more, and it's not about how much you sweat. It's actually about doing less, but doing it better. It's about simplicity, structure, and progression, and that is what we're going to talk about today. Now, we're going to get quite technical today. Now, of course, you have the ability to watch these videos back if you want to, but if you want, I would encourage you to grab a pen, grab a paper, laptop, phone, whatever you've got in front of you, and just make a few notes as we go through it. Obviously, I'll be answering questions at the end as well, but I want to give you as much detail as I can. I want to cover as much as we can and make sure you are as clear as you can be. So when we're building a plan, a workout plan, we have to ask ourselves a few questions, okay? We have to ask ourselves, how many times a week do we want to work out? Or how many times a week is it realistic for us to be able to work out? How long do we want those workouts to be? Or again, how long realistically can they be? What split are we going to follow? And when are we going to do them? Okay? So what I recommend you do when it comes to those four questions, for 90% of guys, particularly if you fall into that category, over 40, busy job, family, stress, career, all that stuff, is you do 3 workouts a week, you follow a full body split, and you aim for your workouts to be between 45 to 60 minutes. And don't worry, I'm going to break down exactly how you should be structuring them in a second. But the reason we set it up that way, the reason I set it up that way for the 90% of my clients, it's essentially like a fail-safe. So when a lot of guys join my coaching program, they go through the onboarding form, and one of the questions is, how many times would you like to work out per week? And I think the way I phrase it is quite purposeful, would like to. And a lot of them, they're very excited, they've just paid, their adrenaline's up, and they say, I want to work out 5 or 6 times a week, right? And I almost have to pull the reins on the horse in that instance, be like, okay, right, that's how much you'd like to in this moment, right now, when motivation is at 100 out of 100. But what's it going to be like when you're 6 weeks in and it's a cold, wet Tuesday morning? So this is why I like to structure it as 3, because 3 is a realistic number. Think about it this way. There's 168 hours in a week. If I'm asking you to work out for 3 of them, pretty much every single person can make time for that. It's essentially excuse proof. And it's a similar logic there with the time frame. We don't really want to be doing 30 minutes because the challenge is when you go too short is that you're going to have to ramp up the intensity so high that you're more likely to get injured. Whereas you don't want to go too long because, well, same thing, you're going to get too injured, but also you start to lose the efficiency gains. It's essentially like if you were revving a car at 9,000 RPM for too long, it's just going to eventually break down, right? So think of your body in the same way. 45 to 60 minutes, depending on what you're doing, is going to be a good amount of time for you, okay? And then when it comes to the days of the week, you could do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, or you could do Monday, Thursday, Saturday. You get the idea. But I would always advise, where possible, to get a Monday workout in. Working out on a Monday helps to set the intention, it helps to build the momentum, but it also means that you're ticking one off of the list. And that's really powerful because if you get to Wednesday, for example, let's say the start of the week's gotten away from you. You get to Wednesday and you think, God, I've still got to do 3 workouts this week. And you start trying to figure out how you're going to fit them in. And what's happening in the back of your head is you're starting to build the excuses. You're starting to build the validation as to, oh, well, I'll just do 2. Oh, it'd be fine. And then you get to the end of the week and all that you're left with is feeling shame and guilt. And those are 2 very low levels of consciousness that you hold on to. No one else cares about. No one else is as fussed about your workout plan as you are, right? But that's kind of why we set it up as a full body approach. Because even if the worst happens and you're only able to get 2 or even 1 workout in that week, at least I know and at least you know that you've worked all of the major muscles once per week. Whereas if we're doing like the classic bro split where you're allocating 45 minutes to your shoulders or to your arms, let's say that's the only workout that you do in that week, you've neglected everything, your chest, your back, your abs, and most importantly, your legs as well. So not only are you just going to have disproportionately large arms in that instance, but because of the size of the muscles in your arms, you're not actually burning that many calories. You see, you have to remember the number of calories that you burn is directly proportionate to the number of calories that you burn as well. Did I say that right? The size of the muscle is directly proportionate to the number of calories that you burn. Okay? And we're going to come on to this in the structure as well. Does that all make sense? You've still got some comments here? Cool, awesome. So in terms of how we structure them then, okay? What we want to be doing is prioritizing what we call compound movements. Now, people get a little bit confused when we talk about compound movements because they might have heard different definitions in the past, so I'll try and be as clear with this as I can. Compound movements are exercises that use multiple joints and the biggest muscles in your body. So examples of compound movements would be a squat, a deadlift, a leg press, a lunge, pull-ups, push-ups, rows, any kind of press, whether that's a bench press or an overhead press. Those would be good examples. It's not the only ones, but they are a good example of compound exercises. What are not compound exercises are the ones that use singular muscles and smaller muscles. So bicep curls, tricep pushdowns, crunches, calf raises. These exercises have their place, but they aren't compound moves. And the beauty of compound moves is it kind of goes back to what I just said there. Because we're using the biggest muscles and because we're using multiple muscles, it means you're going to burn the most calories. So think about it this way. A muscle requires oxygen to contract. Your body has to work harder the bigger the muscle is. So let's say you're doing a squat. You're using your quads, you're using your glutes, you're using your hamstrings. 3 of the biggest muscles that are in your body. Those muscles require a lot of oxygen, which means that your heart has to which means the lungs have to breathe in more oxygen and then the heart has to work harder to pump that oxygen to the blood. These are all what we call metabolic processes, and that's how you burn calories, okay? Another misconception as well is people think you sweat fat out. You don't. You breathe it out. So we want to prioritize compound movements. What we also want to be thinking about is putting the legs at the beginning of our workouts. This is primarily because this is where you have the biggest muscles, but more importantly, it's because they have the biggest demands on the body. So once you've done your squats, let's say you were to start with your upper body and then you had to do your legs, you're not going to have enough gas in the tank to be able to go to maximum effort. So you always want to be starting with your legs. Then what you want to be doing is splitting the exercises that you're doing between exercises that bend the knees. So very simply put, two big examples would be some form of a squat, a barbell or a dumbbell or a suitcase or a goblet squat or a Smith machine, and then some form of a hip hinge. So deadlifts or good mornings are the 2 examples that spring to my mind straight away. And there's obviously lots of different variations of those, okay? And then with your upper body, you've got push movements. So you could have vertical push, so like an overhead press. You can have horizontal push, like a chest press machine, and similar with pull movements. So you can have a seated cable row where you're sitting and pulling, or you could have a vertical pull, the best of which is probably a pull-up, or if you can't do that, a lat pull down. Okay, I appreciate we've got people on the I always say cool, on the live right now who are going to have different levels of experience. Some people are like, what is this guy talking about? We're going to break down an example workout for you in a second, okay? But essentially how I would then structure that is I would have 3 or 4 leg exercises and then 3 or 4 upper body exercises. So if, for example, in one workout I'm doing 3 leg exercises, I might do 5 upper body. But then the next workout, I might do 4 or 5 legs and only 3 upper body. Okay, so you can kind of mix and match how you want. But a little bit like your calories, you want to be looking at weekly volume rather than day to day. So you don't need to be obsessing about every single workout being perfect. You want to be zooming out. That's kind of a big philosophy that I'm a believer in, is that it's never about being perfect on one day. It's about being consistent over a period of time and having a much more zoomed out approach, okay? And then the last thing you want to be doing is finishing up with some form of conditioning. So what I like to give the guys I work with, what I like to do myself, is 4 or 5 30-second sprints on a rower, on an air bike, on a treadmill, or anything like that. And this is just a way of getting the heart rate up and kind of signaling it's the end of the workout as well. Now, in terms of reps and sets, again, there is no right way to do this, and I'm going to talk about why later in the video. But I tend to aim for 3 to 4 sets, and what I will always start with lower weight and higher reps, and then work to invert that. So let's say I was doing 4 sets of a specific exercise. I might do, the first set might be 12 reps, then the second might be 10, the third might be 8, and the fourth set might be 5 reps. So by the end, I'm lifting heavier weight, but I'm doing far fewer reps. And what that enables you to do is it means that you can treat the first set of every single exercise as your warm-up. So it means that you're not having to do like 3 warm-up sets on every single exercise, which some guys will kind of get you to do. And then again, you start to go through this, you're like, okay, if I'm doing 3 warm-up sets and I'm doing 10 exercises, this is going to take me 2 hours. It's not realistic. So again, you'll notice a theme here. I'm always trying to find ways to make these workouts as efficient and as effective as possible. Okay? And the other beauty of that sort of system, if you like, that sort of pyramid system, is that it means that every single session you're being challenged in a different rep range. So when you get to your set where you're just doing 5 reps, you're thinking much more about, okay, what's the kind of maximum weight I can do? Whereas in your first one, it's much more about like just getting through that volume, those 12 reps. Kind of works different systems essentially. So as an example workout, I wrote one out for you just before the live here. And this is just an example. Just want to kind of walk you through it. Let's say you want to start with 3 leg exercises. We might do 4 sets of the leg press. And again, it would be 12 reps, 10 reps, 8 reps, 5 reps. Then we might do a lying leg curl. So we're working that's more of a hamstring dominant machine. Again, we could do 4 sets there. And then you might want to finish up your legs by doing 3 sets of walking lunges, okay? And then on the upper body, we're going to do 4 exercises here. We're going to do 3 compound movements. So we're going to do a chest press, dumbbell bent over rows, and a shoulder press machine. And then we're going to do some bicep curls with the dumbbells, okay? So 3 compound movements, 1 isolation movement. Did you notice on the legs as well, that was 3 compound movements. Leg press, it was 2 compound movements and 1 isolation. Leg press and lunges were compound movements, and the leg curls were just an isolation movement because we're just using 1 muscle. It's a big muscle, but we're just using 1, okay? And then I'd finish up with some form of ab work. So I might do leg raises or ab wheel or Russian twists, and then we're going to do that conditioning. So in this instance, I would probably do 4 30-second sprints on an air bike or on the treadmills because I've already kind of maxed out my upper body. So I wouldn't want to be doing the rower in this instance. Now, a couple of notes on that. You might have noticed I've put in a fair few machines there. And actually one of my newest clients, Srini, asked me about this the other day. He said, like, what's the deal with the machines? There's 2 main reasons I like machines. Number 1 is that they minimize the risk of injury because they essentially control the movement pattern for you. I see a lot of beginners lifting way too heavy dumbbells and they're all over the place, and the injuries that they get aren't like tearing the bicep, it's the tendons, it's the ligaments, and that's because they haven't built the stabilization strength in between the muscles. So that's one of the reasons, is safety. The other reason is progression. So it's a lot easier. Let's take the shoulder press as a good example, actually. When you first start doing a shoulder press with the dumbbells, you're just going overhead like this. not in that range of motion, by the way. I'm just not doing it because I don't want the microphone to go crazy. You're doing your shoulder press with your dumbbells. You start with 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 20, etc., etc. You get heavier and heavier and heavier. You're doing it. You get to a point where it's a struggle to just get the weights up, and that's where it gets dangerous. But then you can't progress any further. Whereas if you're doing a seated shoulder press machine, you can keep progressing. You can keep loading the weight up, or it might be a pin-loaded one. So that's 2 reasons that I really like machines. That's the same with like like a barbell squat versus a leg press. Again, nothing wrong with barbell squats. They're fantastic, but they're a very advanced exercise. And you might see it on TikTok or Instagram and think, oh, that looks great and that guy's in great shape. I'm going to go and do them. Fantastic. But again, if you've never done it before and you're not doing it under the guidance of a PT or a coach, the chances are you're going to hurt yourself. And it takes far longer to recover from one bad squat than I'd like you to spend out at the gym. So that's the first point I wanted to make. That's the kind of caveat on that exercise. Second one was around abs. You notice that I only gave you one ab exercise there. There's a common misconception that you have to do thousands of crunches to see your abs. I think you've probably heard the phrase before that, abs are made in the kitchen, and that's absolutely true. You need to be lean enough to see your abs. We all have abs, but we also want to be developing those abs, the thickness of them. And the best way to do that is those compound movements. Because if you think about it, anything like a squat or a deadlift or pull-ups even, for example, pull-ups are actually one of the best core exercises you can do, is that you're working your core against gravity. Your core is having to stabilize, which is actually your core's job, all of the muscles in your body for you to be able to complete that exercise and every single rep safely. So the best way to build core strength is to do the compound movements. Now again, you can complement it with isolation ab work, like leg raises, ab wheels, all this sort of stuff, and they're fantastic, but you don't want to be focusing on them because they don't actually burn that many calories, okay? So that was what I wanted to say there. And then like I said, so that was that exercise, that workout. On the next workout, I might do 4 leg exercises and 3 upper body ones, and I might swap from bicep curls to some form of tricep exercise, so I'm working both sides of the arm, okay? So why are we aiming for this structure? Well, there's a few reasons. Number one is to maximize the efficiency, both in terms of the effectiveness, but also in terms of the speed. That means you can get in and out of the gym in 45 minutes and work every single major muscle in your body and burn a ton of calories in the process, okay? Number two is it uses the biggest muscles multiple times. And number three is that it's going to have the biggest impact on your body shape. Because again, think about it this way. The bigger the muscle, the bigger the capacity for that muscle to grow and develop. So that is going to have the biggest impact on your body composition. If you're just doing like arm day all the time, you might grow your biceps a little bit, but from a distance, you're not going to notice it and no one else is going to notice it. You want to be focusing on the biggest muscle groups in the body to have the biggest transformation in terms of your body composition, okay? Just make sure we're still live. Cool. Yep, we're all good. We're all here. So what makes this all kind of work though? Number one, just like diet, is simplicity and consistency. More exercises is not better because exercises are skills. There's one of the most common common mistakes I see a lot of coaches make, a lot of junior coaches make, is that they will constantly chop and change their clients' workouts because they think they're going to get bored if they give them the same workouts to do week after week. My argument to that is that your client, if you're a coach, is never going to get bored as long as they're progressing. The thing is, you're not going to progress unless you're doing the same exercise over and over again, because just like a skill, painting, archery, I don't know why that came to my head, fencing, God, my brain's gone down a real rabbit hole now. These are all skills. You're going to have to do them over and over and over again to get good at them. Like a lunge is a great example, right? A lunge is a very technical exercise. It requires stabilization, it requires strength, it requires core stability, it requires a lot of elements. It's a very unusual movement pattern. If I just say to you, right, you do walking lunges in week 1 and then you're not going to do them again until week 5, you're not going to get any better at walking lunges. So I want you to treat these exercises like skills and do them over and over again, week after week, because that's how you're going to get better at them, and you're not going to get bored, because if you do them like that, you will keep progressing, you will keep getting stronger. Plus, you will have a baseline to measure yourself against. In week 1, I did X. In week 8, I did Y. And that's actually the second point then is around tracking. So again, just like diet, what gets measured gets managed. More data is never a bad thing. So many guys are winging it, but that's why they're stagnating. For week 1 and week 2, you can remember what you did last week, but I promise you, you lose track of the progress that you've made. And this works in both ways. So I've had clients who felt really dejected at different points in their program. They feel like they're stuck. They feel like they've stagnated. We've pulled up their data because I can see all of their exercises. I can see how much they're lifting every single session in the app that I use. And we can say, okay, well, hold on. Let's look at this objectively, not emotionally. 2 months ago, you did this amount of volume, and this month you've lifted 30% more. So you've gotten 30% stronger in 60 days. And then they go, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. If you don't have any record of this, whether you're writing it down manually, old school, pen and paper, or using some form of app, then you have no record. Then you're relying on your emotions, not on your data, not on logic. So you want to be tracking your workouts. And number 3, probably the most important of all, is progression. So volume is the measure of progression, okay? Volume is made up of 3 factors. You've got the weight that you lift, you've got the number of reps that you do per set, and then you've got the number of sets that you do. So let's use an example. Let's do leg press, and let's say I'm doing 3 sets of 10, and I'm doing 100 kilos on the leg press for each rep. So that is per set, that would be 1,000 kilos, 10 times 100. And then I multiply that by 3 because there's 3 sets. That's 3,000 kilos, okay? So in week 1, on day 1, this workout, my leg press volume is 3,000. My goal in week 2, when I go back to doing the leg press again, is to improve on that volume. Now, you can do that in any of the 3 ways. You can add an extra set. You can do an extra rep in that 3rd set or that 1st set. Or what most people like to do, what I like to do, is to add extra weight. If at first you add extra weight and you can do that for 3-4 weeks in a row, fantastic. You don't need to manipulate the reps and the sets that you're doing. But you will get to a point, probably 4 to 6 weeks in, where you just can't get any more weight out. You can't squeeze any more juice out of it. In that instance, you then add an extra rep. Once you can't add any more reps, or it just gets to a point where it's ridiculous, you're doing like more than 15, that's when you add an extra set. Or at that point, when you're about 8 to 10 weeks in, that is when you change the exercise up. So do you see what I mean? That is how we measure progressive overload. That is the principle of it. And as long as you are increasing the volume that you are lifting every single week, you are getting stronger and you are forcing your muscles to grow back bigger and stronger. Okay, so those are the 3 things that you need, regardless of the reps, regardless of the sets, regardless of the split, regardless of the days you work out, the times you work out, anything. You need those 3 things. Simplicity, you need to track, and you need progressive overload as well. The thing is though, like, this is what's crazy. Most guys are already turning up. I doubt many of you have never seen the inside of a gym. What you're lacking, what most of you are lacking, is structure, intensity, and consistency. So we've talked about the structure, we've talked about the consistency, doing it week on week on week. What you're now lacking is the intensity. And like I said, you don't need more exercises, you need more intensity. And you need to stick to a plan for at least 8 weeks, if not longer. I think so many guys have had their brain just fried by short form content, whether it's on Instagram or social media. They see these, 30-second reels, which is showing someone's transformation. And it's almost like the Rocky cutscene. That cutscene where Rocky Balboa, Sylvester Stallone is, getting in shape with the music is a minute and a half. The reality of that is it's 3 to 6 months, depending on your start point, if not longer. So just like the diet, you need to be patient, and just like the diet, you need to be consistent. I think one of the biggest mistakes I see guys make is not that they're not trying, it's not that they're not turning up, it's that they're chopping and changing. So they think they're being consistent, but actually they're not, because they did this workout routine for 2 weeks, then they did this workout routine for 2 weeks. That's exactly the same as if you were chopping and changing between diets. It takes a little bit of time to adjust, to stabilize, to build some routine, and then to progress. So you just have to remind yourself to stay in the game. It's like you have to kind of trust fall into the program. I mean, a good example of this is me doing these YouTube lives, right? So I've made a conscious decision in January. I'm not going to put out any normal YouTube videos. I'm going to do them all live. I have no proof or evidence that this is going to benefit my channel in any way. But I know it will, because I have so much evidence from being consistent with so many other things in my life. Consistency always pays off, in whatever it is. Okay? So just like your diet, just like your nutrition, we want to focus much more on principles that we've been through today and not the method. So you're going to have all these competing voices and different people saying like, you have to do this, you have to do that. You don't have to do anything. Again, like the diet, you want to make it enjoyable. You want to find the exercises that you enjoy. But, gentlemen, there are 168 hours in a week. And if I'm telling you 3 workouts a week, that literally makes up less than 2% of your week, of your time. So what you do outside the gym is going to be far more important. In fact, you shouldn't even see your exercises, your workouts, as a way to burn fat. You should see them as a way to build strength and power and, of course, lean muscle as well. It's what you do outside the gym. It's your lifestyle and your nutrition, of course, that burns the fat. And this is where your step count becomes so important. But you don't need to aim for 10,000 straight out the gate. 10,000 steps is an arbitrary number. Nothing magical happens between 9,999 and 10,000. The unicorns don't show up. Don't worry, you're not missing anything. What I want you to do at first, what I want you to do right now, is to pull up your health app on your phone. So if you've got an iPhone, it'll be the health app. If you're on Android, you will have some form of pedometer app that has been tracking your steps in the background. Pull that up and look at your last 30 days or month or whatever you can. Like, don't just look at yesterday, don't look at last week, look at your last 30 days and see what you averaged. That's your baseline. Now, for most guys, it's going to be 4,000 to 5,000 because that is the average. Maybe not most guys watching this because you guys are more health conscious. Maybe you've been watching YouTube videos like mine for a while and maybe you're already doing more. That's great. But for most guys, the average is 4,000 to 5,000. That's your baseline. That's fine. I'd rather you face into that and know that. Now what we want to be doing is just adding 10% to your baseline every week until you get to 10,000. And just like your calories as well, zoom out. So don't see 10,000 as the sort of number that you have to live or die by. If you hit 10,000 in a day, fantastic. If you don't stress about it. Zoom out and give yourself a weekly target. So if let's say your baseline is, 7,000. So you go, okay, right, I'm going to try and aim for 8,000 next week. 8,000 per day. 8,000 times by 7 is 64,000. I'm doing a lot of math tonight. So I now set myself a weekly step target of 64,000. Now I know in my head there's going to be days there where my step count is going to be a lot lower. We've got a massive storm just started here. It's going to rain for the next 48 hours. I know my step count tomorrow on Sunday is going to be low. But on Monday, I will then purposely make up for it and do 13, 14, maybe even 15,000 steps once the rain clears. Now, of course, I'm not saying, oh, it's raining, I'm not going to go outside. You can go outside when it's raining. That's just one example of how you can kind of flex this. Because again, just like your diet, the mentality I want you to avoid is the whole, I'll start again on Monday. This stop-start cycle that gets so many guys, it catches so many guys out, okay? The other thing to say about this is that 1,000 steps is only going to take you about 8 minutes. I'm sad, I've measured this. And that means that you can do 8,000 steps in an hour. So again, and I say this because I want to reframe it for anyone who's thinking, well, this is tough. Because an hour, again, is not that long. Particularly if you came into this thinking, I'm going to have to work out 5 days a week. Well, I've just bought you 2 hours back. I've just bought you 16,000 steps back. So 8,000 steps is 1 hour. And you can use that and start to think, okay, cool. Well, that means 4,000 is only half an hour. Why don't I break it up? Why don't I do 4,000 in the morning, 4,000 in the afternoon or the evening? Because the other big benefit of walking is not just physical, it's mental. So when we get outside, when we get into, not necessarily into nature, but when we get out and change our environment, it activates a part of our nervous system called the parasympathetic nervous system. And this is a really important part of our nervous system, especially in today's world. We spend a lot of our time in fight or flight mode. We're constantly dealing with competing things that are trying to get our attention, with problems and with stress. And when you're in fight or flight, it's very difficult for your body to burn fat. It actually prefers to burn fat when it's in the parasympathetic mode, which is rest and digest. Now, one of the best ways to activate that, other than sleep, is walking. So when you're getting your 8, 10, 12,000 steps, whatever number it is, in every single day, you're not just doing it for your body, you're not just doing it to burn fat and calories, you're doing it because you're actually going to help your brain. And this is all to do with lateral eye movement. It's subconscious, you don't really do it, but like when you're in an enclosed room like I am right now, you don't really do that. I believe it's almost like, what's the word? It's like a generational thing, going back to the old caveman days where we were constantly on the lookout for predators, essentially. Now, obviously, there's not really predators in the world. There are, but not like saber-toothed tiger level predators, right? Things that are trying to kill us and stuff like that. So we don't really need it, but it's still there. So it's a very useful tool to have, and it's awesome. And also you can use it as an opportunity to, catch up on admin, do voice notes. I make a habit, and my clients know this well, of I will go through all my messages when I'm out. So, because it means I'm walking, I can read their message, I can send voice notes back. You can phone a friend, you can phone your mum, you can listen to podcasts. I get through like 2 podcasts a day just because I'm walking so much. And it's great because I feel like I'm learning something as well. It's relaxing. It's a great way when you live in a high stress environment to relax yourself. So that is pretty much everything I wanted to say today, guys. Hopefully that was all clear. Let's have a little catch up on where we're up to with everything. Yes to both. Boom, boom. Good, good. Looking forward to tonight's. Yep. Let's lock in. Yeah, let's lock in. I love it. Walking 20,000 steps a day has brought me from 36-inch waist and 33% body fat to a 30-inch waist and 17% body fat. Boom! Love it, my man. Absolutely awesome. It's so underrated because you don't, like in the instance, you don't feel or see the sweat. You don't feel like your heart rate's elevated. You're not got a pump on. But the compound effect it has, like put it this way, right? If you do 10,000 steps a day, it essentially adds up to about 30 pounds of fat per year. It's crazy. Like, it doesn't sound like much, but if you're just consistent with that simple, boring habit, boring works. It makes a huge, huge difference. Southern California, love it, my man. Hi, Doug. I've seen some people suggest 5 to 8 reps is optimal. If you can do 12 reps or more, weight is too light. What do you think? Yeah, so optimal for what? Again, this is where it becomes goal specific. This is where I can't like just give a workout program to the internet because everybody has different gym equipment. They've got different goals. They're coming from different start points, different experience levels, different injuries, different ages, different times. It's impossible. There is no one workout program. There is no one rep set combination. There is no one exercise. For me, I like to use that pyramid, like I said, because you can start with the lightweight, lightweight, high reps and build up. So you're challenging yourself in different ways. There is no right rep range. It's about increasing the volume that you lift over time. If you want to do that through 5 reps, great. You know another way to think about this? Pick your hard. Pick your hard because it doesn't really matter. 3 sets of 10, 5 sets of 5, 10 sets of 10. It doesn't matter. You still got to increase your volume. You're actually better off starting at a lower baseline and building up. Because otherwise, if you start up here, like there's it's not as popular anymore, but there's a type of training called German volume training. Very effective. Do you know why? Because it's 10 by 10. You're doing 100 reps of everything. Week 1, you are loving life because you feel strong, you look good. After 4 weeks of that, you're like, oh, God, I've got to do 100 squats today and I've got to lift heavier. It's not very appealing. So again, within 4 weeks, it's like an extreme diet. You're just like, oh, well, I can't do that anymore. So again, we just want to break this gut back and go back to simplicity. I'm well unstable doing lunges. Yeah, 100%. Listen, lunges is a good example and a bad example at the same time because it's a very technical exercise. And like, I wouldn't give lunges to everyone, obviously, because some people are coming in with tight hips. They've come in with previous knee surgeries or things like that. I'm not going to be like, right, day 1, let's go and do some lunges with a barbell on your back, something like that. But you can build up to it. And also, I think there's a lot of power in an exercise like a lunge because it actually makes you think at the same time. And like one of the unsung benefits of workouts is that it gets your brain out of a funk. You know how like you've got those nagging thoughts at the back of your head and you think you're not thinking about them, but you are, and they just sort of wear you down as the day goes on. And then you do your workout, and because you're doing something hard where you have to really focus, like For me, it would be like a really heavy leg press. I'm thinking like, if I don't 100% focus on these next 5 reps, there is a chance my legs are going to snap in half, right? With a lunge, you're not going to snap your legs in half, but you could hurt yourself, right? You could fall over, you could look like an idiot. You don't want to do these things, so you're focused. So again, there's a lot of power in these exercises and again, in compound movements like that. Compound movements, how much rest in between? Yeah, it's a good point, actually. I didn't talk about rest. Thank you, Kevin. That's really useful for you to say. I'm glad you said that. So, rest, again, is subjective. Some guys like to measure it using heart rate. So, I used to do this, actually. When you get back down to about 120 beats, you kind of know you're ready to go. And again, like, this is one of those things, the more advanced a trainer you are. When I say a trainer, I don't mean like me as a trainer. I mean like the more advanced you are in terms of how long you've been going to the gym, you will just get to know your body. You'll know when you're gassed and you'll know when you can go again. But a good rule of thumb, if it's a compound movement, particularly if it's a leg movement, so like a squat or a lunge or a deadlift or a leg press, would be 2 minutes. If you can, here's a good way of putting it. If you can go again on the leg press after 1 minute, you ain't lifting heavy enough. You're just not. Whereas if you get to 2 minutes and you're like, oh my God, I've got to go again, you're lifting about the right amount, okay? But equally, if you're going too long, you'll see these guys, the power lifters, they're leaving 5 minutes in between their sets. You're not a power lifter, right? Like, as much as some of you might think you are, you're not. So don't leave 5 minutes. Don't look at your phone. Don't get distracted by that. I would say if it's a compound movement, a good rule of thumb would be 2 minutes. If it's an upper body one, maybe 1 minute, 45 seconds. But again, round up, take the extra 15 seconds because again, you want to be able to hit that next set with the maximum amount of effort. Okay? So hopefully that helps. Hopefully that answers there. Where are we up to? The program good for older men, older 50 plus men. I'm guessing that means is the program. Yes, 100%, my man. I mean, again, you have to use common sense, I'd say, is the first thing for anyone, but particularly as you get a little bit older. My oldest client is 79 years old, and he's doing something very similar to this. So yes, the average age of my client is, I think, 51 at the moment. So yes, 100%. And also, 50 is not old. You've got half of your life ahead of you. So again, reframe how you're thinking about this, my man. You're not old. Trust me, modern science, AI, the world is about to change by measures that most people can't even imagine. Some serious shit is about to go down, hopefully in a good way. And I think one of the biggest things that's going to change is health tech. In the next 5 years, I think we're going to see some mad advancements. We're all living to 120, at least. So yes, you are not old, and yes, this will work for you if you are over 50 years old. Scott, I like the machines. I don't get hurt and the exercise to get done with good form. Yeah, good form. Yeah, exactly. The kind of what I was saying. Good form there. And yes, it's easy to increase the weight. Boom. That's it, man. And again, like I just want to say, like, don't be. I don't want any of you to think I'm being dogmatic with my approach here. Like, there are certain machines that I don't like because of how do I say this? Because of the sort of length of my limbs, or because of like certain angles and stuff like that. Like certain things are going to work better for certain people and certain things are going to work worse. But like if I'm thinking for me, I can't do dumbbell shoulder press because I can't hoist 40 kilo dumbbells up here, let alone I can get them up there, but I can't get them up here. If I do that, I'm going to snap a ligament. Whereas if I sit down and do the shoulder press machine, I can keep going and keep going and keep going, right? Same with the squats. It got to a point where like my barbell squat, I mean, it wasn't great. It was like 140 kilos, nothing crazy. But it got to a point where I was like, I mean, I'm not enjoying this anymore. So I know as soon as I stop enjoying something, I'm going to give up eventually. So I kind of start to think, okay, there's a point where you have to push through the pain a little bit. But then it gets a little bit silly. And again, rule number 1, common sense. So I think, okay, what can I do? What can I swap this out for that's going to enable me to keep moving forward? Well, I've got a hack squat, maybe a Smith machine squat, a leg press. You know, there's always an alternative. There's multiple ways to skin the cat, as it were. TRX, my man, TRX, you are a legend. I remember you donated as well last night. Thank you so much, my man. Bogdan, how's it going, brother? How about kettlebell training? Yeah, again, kettlebells, dumbbells, it's all weight, brother. It's all volume, no difference. I'm 72 and locked in. Let's go, my brother. Love it. Good answer, you're welcome. Do you have any opinion on volume per muscle group minimum? No, there is no minimum. The only goal is more. It's a little bit like what I was talking about last night with water. Most people, they don't need to know the minimum, they just need to do more. And again, it comes back to that leg press example I gave you there, where it's like, if I'm doing, if I'm doing the 3,000 kg in week 1, my goal is to do 3,100, 3,002. It doesn't matter, like more. Now, at the beginning, the amount of volume more that you're able to do it's going to go up faster. So, sorry, I didn't say that very well. Let me give you an example. Let's say I'm going in and I'm doing leg press again for week 2. I'm probably going to be able to do like 3,500 or maybe 4,000 kilos. My strength gains are going to be, massive at the beginning. But then as you sort of, get into week 4, week 5, the marginal gains get smaller and smaller and smaller. And this is where frustration kicks in, because you feel like you're not progressing as much. But again, if you have the data to prove it, then you can see and you can go, okay, I'm not going to think emotionally, I'm going to look at this logically. Hey, I am still making progress. Cool. And you can also look back and go, wow, in 3 months' time, or 3 months, I've managed to increase my strength 40, 50%, or whatever it may be. So no, when it comes to, volume per muscle group, there is no minimum. It's very much just around doing it and then doing more each week. Let's say you're a brand new, let's give another perspective. Let's say you're someone who's never been to the gym before, or you're recovering from an injury. I've got a client actually who he had a serious bicep tear, and he used to be able to do like 40 pounds on the dumbbells with his bicep curls. And then he had to eat humble pie and start back at 5 pounds. Now in his brain, he wanted to get back to 40 as fast as possible. But I said to him, like, what happens when you get to 40? What actually happens? All you're doing is feeding the ego, nothing else. It doesn't change anything else. So whether you get to, and also the faster you try to get to that 40 in that instance, the faster you're going to plateau. If you take your time, you're going to blast past 40 and hit 50 or 60, right? And again, like similar to the diet, you're going to have good sessions, you're going to have bad sessions, right? It's similar to like me doing these lives. Like I'm going to have days where I turn up, my brain is firing, everything's great, the vibes are good, and there's going to be days where I'm just a little bit flat. That's life. But as long as you keep turning up and you stay consistent no matter what, and you go on logic and not emotion, and you use common sense, you will get there. You will get better. You will make progress. That's the most important thing.